Hey, Laura, I locked my door, but if someone tries to open it, I'm on a podcast and you are free to murder them.
There you go. Welcome to No More Mondays, the podcast that helps you navigate career challenges through the wisdom of professionals who have been at the same crossroads. I'm your host, Angie Callan, and I welcome you to join me each week as I chat with leaders, entrepreneurs, and employees who are here to share practical, tactical advice and some inspiration on how they arrived at career satisfaction. From job searching and career changes to going out on your own, we're breaking down barriers and providing actionable takeaways to help you take charge of your Mondays and ditch the Sunday blues. Welcome to the No More Mondays movement. Hello and welcome to another episode of No More Mondays. I am your host, Angie Callan. Buying a home is no easy task. I know we did it for the first time this past July of all times of year or all times of the market to purchase your first home. And what I realized is you want to have a great team of people behind you. And today we get to talk to one of them. Unfortunately, he wasn't part of my team because he is New York's favorite British mortgage broker, Ben Lavender. One of the things I love about him is he has figured out how to stand out and really carve a niche in what can be a competitive industry kind of in the mortgage real estate space. So we're going to dig a little bit more into that and how he's become known as New York's favorite British mortgage broker. So, Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted. I'm honored, and 5 other adjectives I can't think of right now, but I'm pumped.
Yeah, and all the 7 listeners out there are going to be so impacted by what you have to say.
They will. You know what's funny is that, here at Madison, I have a podcast. Not I, but I'm like the main interviewer. And I always joke, like, we get a total of, 18 listens or, sometimes 100. But it's good for other things. It's good for relationship building. It's good for social media. But, you know, it's fun, too. I love doing podcasts. So, again, thank you for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah, it's fun. It's really interesting when you become a podcaster. This is a complete side note, but it's interesting the network it opens you up to. And it also, randomly, I met Ben at a conference in Denver he flew in for with this very hilarious group of real estate professionals and everything involved in that, where I went and talked to them about why they should all be on LinkedIn, and I don't think any of them believed me. But this gave us the perfect reason to stay in touch and catch up because – you know, Ben's got clearly a great personality and he's much more interesting to listen to than I am because he's got an accent that isn't Western Pennsylvanian hick. So here we are.
Yeah, the accent helps a lot. I mean, because look, when most people say, because I tell a lot of people just do video and do whatever, right? Like, be more active. And they're like, Ben, it's easy for you because you have a British accent. And to a degree, that is true. But there are plenty of people that have British accents in the industry. Like, I know actually, I think 8 realtors locally in my market that have British accents and they don't do video. And a few of them do. And they just don't have the same impact because they don't do certain things. You have to have fun with it. And I started doing video back in 2018. It was interesting because my videos were 2 minutes long. There were these funny skits of whatever. And now with TikTok, people's attention spans are 2-3 seconds. I've had to switch everything up. But I'm just kind of rambling here, but basically...
Yeah, you're answering the next 7 questions I was going to ask you already. No, I'm
just
kidding.
In that case, I will stop and I'll let you go ahead.
So basically what you have told us, that while you may be New York's favorite British mortgage lender, you're also maybe not the only one.
I'm not the only one.
Right.
Well, at least in New York. And I always like to joke that I am New York's favorite by default.
By default.
Right? Because I am the only one. And, my mummy says that I'm the best. So.
Hey.
That's what I call it. Go, mommy.
When you have an opportunity, you got to run with it. I think my one random question in return is, do British people find American accents as compelling as we find the reverse? Or is this just a weird American thing?
I don't, but because I live here, right? But if you go to England, that is the case.
So I should go be on a bunch of English podcasts.
You should.
Okay.
You should. You'll absolutely crush it.
All right.
And to be fair, my accent isn't a full British accent. It's 50-50 because I moved here when I was 14. So it's I got this little twang. My sister, who's older than me, though she'll hate me for saying that, hers is very strong, as is my father's. But we take the gifts that we're given and we use them. If I wasn't America's or New York's favorite British mortgage broker, I'd come up with
Something
something
else.
cheesy that's cashy.
You could be their favorite bald British mortgage lender.
That's actually I've used that line.
Yeah.
And that's my next thing. Bald, I said actually New York's favorite bald British bearded mortgage broker.
Which no one has. Okay, so first of all, you're all gonna get a glimpse into the behind the scenes of No More Mondays because we're recording video, but you guys don't get to see it. So first thing is you just said something, and I literally heard Jim, who is my husband on the other end of the house, who's producing this and is sitting in on the conversation, laugh out loud across the house. So there you go. You already got one. But you're also like the only other bearded person in New York. And Jim's from New York, so we go back there frequently. And we always laugh that we're the only people wearing earth tones and baseball caps.
Yeah.
And he's the only man with facial hair.
So, well, facial hair is in now. It's become acceptable. But the earth tones, you're 100%. I mean, I would love to see you guys walk around here amongst all the yuppies and,
Oh, yeah.
See how you blend into the environment.
We wear brightly colored Patagooch on streets full of black like nobody else's business.
Who are these weirdos?
Yeah. Oh, look at those earthy, crunchy hippies. They must live in Colorado. Yes, we do.
And you're probably going to set the trend, actually, when you come here in a month.
I hope so.
If you do that. They're always looking for new trends here.
So let's actually, now that we're 7 minutes in, kick things off with how did you get into this? How did you get into this work? And one of the things, preview everybody, I really wanted to dig into with Ben is like what you gave me a perfect setup. How do you use it? Question, quote unquote. We all have a thing, and how do you use it? And in this preview, you have figured out exactly how Ben uses it, but we're going to get some tips. But bring everybody up to speed. How did you get here?
I'll try and give you the short version. I was graduating college, and I ran into a family member who is the CEO and owner of my company. His name's Shah Tarani. I was 2-3 months away from graduating, something like that. And he's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm studying accounting. I'm going to go be an accountant somewhere. And he's like, try mortgages. And I was like, okay, why not? Let's try it. And I was absolutely terrible at who I am now is a different person. I was more introverted. Actually, still to this day, I'm a pretty introverted person. But I was just different. I didn't have tremendous sales acumen. I wasn't as goofy. And I also knew jack shit about mortgages. Like, I didn't know what a refinance was. I didn't know like how interest rate. I knew nothing.
You were green and stupid.
Nothing. Yeah, and I just I will say one thing about me, which I'm proud of, is that it's not always such a great thing. I have this weird ability to take punishment. I kind of thrive on it, and whenever I notice I'm not great at something, it challenges me, and I enjoy it. Right, so I was just getting my ass kicked every day for 6 months to a year, and over time I got better. And I learned under Shah because I worked on a lot of his files. So I spent the first few months, I did a little bit of selling. And then I was like, I'm not so good at the sales thing because I don't understand anything about mortgages. And he's like, okay, that makes sense. Let's teach you how to structure files. So this way you can sell and communicate to people with confidence. I hate the word sell, but it's really, that was really it. Someone would call me and be like, what's better, a 30-year or a 15-year? And I'm like, what? I don't know what that means. So that was really it. And then once I was able to communicate better and more efficiently, I was able to let my personality come through. I was more playful. I was goofy with clients on the phone. And I think that's something that my clients and realtor partners that I work with here, I think really enjoy working with me. It's because the home buying process itself is very stressful. So if you can enjoy it in the process and kind of make it light, I think that they tend to enjoy it a little bit more. So that's how I approached it, and still how I approach it, truth be told, to this day.
Well, and I think it's funny because people would say the same thing. I didn't even think about this anecdote until you just said it, that people would say the same thing about job searching, that it basically sucks. And I always tell clients, and I'm like, hey, we're going to make this crappy process as fun as we possibly can. And I had a really good team. I had a really close friend who was our real estate agent. And then I used her mortgage lender that she recommended. And we had this really great team of people who I trusted, I liked, and, I would still hang out with if that wasn't what we were going through. And I think that means the world when you're going through kind of something stressful. But you said something I want to highlight. And that is that when you started out, you were green and stupid, basically, right? You kind of weren't that good at it, but you worked through that. And I think that young people today struggle with that. So
That's a nice way to say it, by the way. Struggled. I was shit. I was absolute shit. Okay. I was terrible. And yeah, but sorry, Angie, I did interrupt.
no, that's okay. Keep going. Because this is what I want you to talk about. Like, how did you work through that? And how can young people, I would say young people learn from that. Like, I'm picking on young people, but if you're changing careers, you're going to have to go do something you've never done, right? I feel like we struggle so much, thanks social media, with feeling like we have to be just magically good at and perfect at everything, that it's okay to be absolute shit about something, but work yourself through that to become more of an expert and to become successful.
Yes, I mean, this could go into a whole other conversation about how the younger generation have been coddled and have been given trophies for doing absolutely nothing since they were 5, and that's why. And then on top of it, they want to be paid for just being alive, and then that's another conversation because, like, I think the younger generation is better at demanding more when it comes to employment. And I think the reason is because they have less hope and less opportunity than we did. They have student loans out the arse. They're not getting paid as well. Their rent is crazy high. So they're like, if I can't at least climb the ladder financially, I want to have the best job humanly possible and live my life day to day as well as possible. That's what I think. Don't know if that's true, but if that is the case, it does make sense. But going back to like the ability to really grow and take punishment, I think it comes down to the individual. I get it from my family for sure, because in my community, so I'm even though I'm from England, I'm half Persian and half English, right? So I'm 100% Jewish. So in my family, there is a tremendous, it's unspoken. No one ever says it, but there is an expectation to do well in business, right? And again, like, I didn't grow up and my parents were like, Ben, when you grow up, you have to be a multi-billionaire. Like, no one said that. It's just everyone in my family does very well. So it's unsaid, right? So on top of that, just, typical things that people do, I think, playing sports and, being competitive. Like, I'm a competitive person. I don't like to lose. And this is something that I tend to say this on dates for some reason. It's like,
you better know what you're getting into here.
Yeah, like this is going to sound really creepy, and it's not referring to what you think it's referring to, but I say, at the end of the day, I always get what I want, right? One way or another, sooner or later, I always win. I always get what I want. And it's not referring to what you think. It's just referring to life. And the reason is, it's not because I'm lucky, right? It's because when I have a goal, I go after it. It might take me 10 years to accomplish it, but that's the mindset that you have to have, especially in the mortgage business, because it's so tough. It's so freaking hard. The amount of times I got rejected and I screwed up a phone call and I said the wrong thing. You just have to have, again, this ability to take punishment. And so again, for me, it comes from my family background, how I was raised. And I do see it still in some of the younger generation. There are some realtors that I work with that they're in their early 20s and they're just animals. They're nonstop. But it's rare. It's definitely a rare thing. And it's what you need to succeed in a business like this, because it's just so damn tough.
And if any of you out there think that Ben is anything short of like 100% authentic, let me just tell you, at this very point, after what he just said, there is a picture hanging behind his head that says, thank you for moving your head because I can only see half of it. Losers focus on winners. Winners focus on winning. And I think that is so hugely relevant to how much comparison exists in the world today. And that is part of why you're successful, is you didn't focus on the losses. You didn't focus on the suckage. You just pushed through and focused on what you knew you could do and winning and getting what you wanted, even if that was a long game.
Yeah, I mean, focusing on what someone else does, because there's a lot of comparison, like, in the industry, right? Everyone's talking about their numbers and all this stuff. And I also have to remind myself not to focus on my numbers, right? Because, like, focusing, did I close this or that this month? Like, you have to within a certain degree. But ultimately, it's customer experience and realtor experience that helps you grow. So, that was the quote was, what's the picture? It's the Michael Phelps one when he's swimming, and as the like and he's winning, the guy's like a foot behind him and he's like looking at him. You're not gonna like you can't win if you're putting all your energy to focusing on like what someone else is doing. You have to 100% focus on what you're doing. Sure, be aware of what your competition's doing, but don't obsess, right? And I know a lot of loan officers that do obsess. I know some weird loan officers that are kind of like obsessed with what I'm doing. And I know loan officers that are obsessed with like what another loan officer is doing. And it's like, again, like talking smack about them is just makes you look weak and petty. So focus that energy on yourself and your life. And that's another thing about why I absolutely love the mortgage business and like sales in general is that your growth is, in terms of production as well, it's ultimately a reflection of you. You have to improve as a human being in order to grow the business, right? So I'll give you an example, I'll give you kind of the trajectory of my growth is that in the beginning, I didn't know anything. So I had to focus on sales and I had to focus on knowledge. And then after a while, with that, I got business, right? And then with that business, the business grew and I had to learn new skill, how to manage the business. Okay. And then how to run the pipeline. And then, okay, as that grew, I'm like, okay, shoot, I have to scale now. So the next step for me, which I'm doing, I have a team of 8 people under me is like, so my new thing is how can I be a better manager? How can I motivate my team better? How can I help them improve? That's like my new challenge. And there's always going to be a new challenge and it requires you to, it's funny, I actually just shot a short form video on this yesterday is that you always have to like, and it's hard to do because you have to be objective, which is very difficult, right? And kind of release your ego and say, where am I lacking and where can I improve? Use your strengths to grow, but there's a certain point where they only take you so far. And that little, chink in the armor, you have to fill it, right? Otherwise you can't grow. So for me, that's kind of my next thing is focusing on how to build the team and, take this thing to, I don't know, 40, 50, 100 loans a month.
What's interesting about this is there's also an entrepreneurial aspect to being a mortgage lender as well, because your success really is almost entirely dependent on you. You and I anecdotally are in kind of the same place business-wise, which is kind of cool. But I feel like as just very British and sarcastic you are, which I love. I don't bring it out so much because unless I get the chance to, but I love some East Coast sarcasm. And now that I live in Colorado where everyone is too nice, I don't really get to use it that much. But I feel like there was such a great life lesson in what you just had to say. And that is that like own what you can control. Because I talk to people, whether in your mortgage business or you're a realtor or you're in freaking technology sales. Like I talk to people who are like, oh my gosh, I'm 30 and everybody else that I look at is like so far ahead of me, or I should be at this point in my career. Well, they could be looking at you and saying the same thing. Like, oh man, I wish I was out adventuring every weekend instead of working like a dog to get to the point that they're at. So there's trade-offs and you are where you are for a reason. And if you don't like where it is, that's when you evaluate your strengths, the chinks in the armor, and you figure out what to do with that to get yourself forward. But you should do that based on your own hopes, wishes, dreams, and vision, and not because anybody else is ahead of you or in a different place.
Precisely. And then it comes like that can become a very, very like philosophical thing, right? So like if you want to grow and do better in business, why? Is it because you're greedy and you just want money? Or do you want to improve your lifestyle for your family? Do you want to travel? And then like you have to really like look, and which is why everyone says like you have to know your why, right? And my why is because I just kind of like I like to win. I like to win. I like to be I like to be the best at what I do. And obviously, I want to provide for my family when I have one and all that jazz. But I enjoy the competitive nature of the business. And I feel that it brings the best out of me and it forces me to grow as a human, as I said before. And the better that I do, the better that I can serve people. But that's me. For someone else, it might be, they want to send their kids to college or whatever.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's okay to have kind of your hopes and dreams and wishes around that kind of stuff. But I feel like you have found a place in industry that really utilizes your strengths and plays into kind of your why. I think understanding Simon Sinek, know your why, like all that kind of thing. It's a little bit kitschy and it's become cliche, but I attest that cliches are things for reasons. And if you stop and you think about like why you're doing whatever it is you're doing, you likely can get yourself further along if you kind of understand that deeper meaning and also align it.
Yeah, it's fun because at the end of the day, like you can have your systems and your gadgets and your stuff, but I find that it can be very very deep. And I was talking to one of my team members about this the other day. So she has she's trying to figure out like how she can make more phone calls. And I was talking to her about like you have to understand your own behavior, how your own behavior works. Okay, so back in the day when I was a loan officer assistant under Shah, when Shah was a loan officer, I was his. In the morning, I would cold call realtors. And cold calling realtors to get business was terrifying to me. Even with my accent, right? I was just so freaking scared to do it. And then this is a very simple thing, but I noticed that when I got momentum, I did very well. Okay, so what I mean by that is I would like walk around in my office at home, and then as soon as I sat down, the rule was I have to dial the phone immediately, right? I'm not allowed to just sit there.
You couldn't get in your own head.
Exactly. And because I realized that I got in my own head and I would scroll on my phone for 5 minutes before I made phone calls. And I was telling my team member the same thing. And then I said, when that happens, you have to use that momentum to carry. So even like when I was on the phone, so I had another rule. As soon as they hung up, I would have to dial immediately. I'm not allowed to take a break because if I took a break, that break would turn into 15 minutes. So it's a simple thing, but understanding your own behavior and then like that requires you to step out. But it's a simple thing, but you have to look at that stuff, and that's what helps you grow. I had another point, but I lost my train of thought.
Well, and it's kind of like looking at your behavior and forcing structure and systems that are going to help you work around it if it's a behavior that doesn't serve the bigger goal. And we all hate the phone. We hate the phone. I don't like calling people back either, but necessary evil, especially in your line of work, you found a way to make it palatable. And then as you get into a rhythm of it, now it's not so big of an onerous kind of a thing.
I got it. You brought it back.
Yes.
Thanks, Angie. So it's all about, I forgot what book this was. It was probably one of Malcolm Gladwell's good ones, like how to get into a flow state. For instance, another one, and Tony Robbins talks about this, like why he exercises every morning. It's, the health benefits are great, but it's where it puts your head at, right? So I find that when I go to the gym in the morning and I pump some iron and I go crazy, I'm more aggressive in a good way. I don't like get angry and choke people, but it makes me more assertive. My posture becomes better. I become more outgoing, more playful, and more fun. So I don't go to the gym because of the health benefits and obtaining massive biceps, but it helps put me into that frame of mind where I can be better at my job, right? So like that's another one. And then that carries on to the rest of my day because when I go to the gym and then I go and do videos, I'm looser and I'm more fun. Like, so for instance, right now, I'm pretty loose right now. I'm pretty comfortable. I went to the gym this morning, right? Did a total body workout. Yesterday, I skipped. I took a day off and I wasn't as fluid, even though I did videos yesterday, actually. But I wasn't as fluid as I usually am. And again, you have to notice your own behaviors and what you do like throughout your own day. So something I even say to my team, and I definitely stole this from someone else, is that you have to audit your day, right? Like you have to look at your entire day from start to finish, the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. What is it that you do, and how does what you do affect you?
Positively and negatively, I think is something to pay attention to.
Exactly. And then what do you need to change, right? Because then if you're doing another one that we all know, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, it's insanity, right? And expecting a different result. So in order, and it's simple math, right? If you want a different result, you must change something to obtain that different result.
But if you don't know what those very just habitual things are, what do you know to change? I'm a big fan of, I talk a lot about morning routines around here. I'm a big fan. I am also
Yeah.
a, 6 a.m. CrossFit purely because it's what gets me up and moving for the day. And I see the same thing. Workout days, like more energy, less tired, and all that kind of stuff. On a rest day, I need to prepare for the fact that I'm probably going to just be a little bit more meh.
Yeah. And that's okay sometimes. I mean, look, at the same time, you can't be on every day. So sometimes, Angie, I get into these modes where I'm like in this type of flow state almost every day for like months. And then my body just hits a wall, and then I'm struck with the infamous man flu, and I'm sick for like 4 or 5 days. And I genuinely believe it's because it's my body's way of telling me like you need to chill out.
Stop.
Right. Not because yeah, because like I'll be up from like 6 in the morning, gym, work, go out, and then like I'm not getting home till 9 to midnight, depending on the day, for 5 days in a row. And your body's like, dude, you need to slow down. So, and I think that's just a part of the natural cycle. And then you reassess, or you start again in a couple of weeks.
And you allow yourself that space, I think, is the important thing, instead of just trying to power through it. And now you can't get yourself back into it.
Oh, I become a useless human being when I'm sick. I cannot do anything. The man flu, again, is real. It's a real disease. Please send help. You can donate to my hotline. I'll provide it later. But we need to rest, man. It's normal. So, and I also don't believe in the whole like you need to grind 24/7 and be a lunatic. There are some stages in your career where you do. So, like a simple one is going back to the phones. Right. Like I tell my team, like, you don't just want to be on the phone every day because you're going to pick up more business, but you're sharpening your axe every time you do. Every time you have the same type of conversation with someone over and over and over again, you're able to, one, understand their objections and hit them with rebuttals more efficiently. But you can sense, or you develop more of an instinct for people's tonality. Right. So to give you perspective, Angie, like back in the day, when I was, on the phone with clients, it would take me like maybe multiple conversations or like 1 hour conversation to really like read someone. Now, when someone says something, even if what they're saying doesn't exactly make sense, I know what they're saying within like 5 to maybe 15 minutes. And like I will, again, I don't like to use the word, but sell them on what's going on, not because I'm selling them something. I'm not even saying like, we're the best, we do this. It's really just making sure they know that I understand what they're saying, repeating it back to them, and then confirming that they are good with it, and then communicating how we're going to solve their problem or do what they need us to do. And again, making sure that they're okay with it, making sure they understand what the next steps are and all that jazz. And then boom, that's how it's done. And again, that takes 5 to 15 minutes max.
Well, I'm going to give you another word because this is like, it's so funny. We've talked a lot about this, and it was literally one of the talking points that I put on my notes before we started, and I didn't even know it. But I'm going to give you another word for selling. You're educating. And one of the things that I love about you, and just kind of tuning into the content that you put out there, is that subject matter expertise is definitely something you leverage to your advantage. And what I think is so funny is we talked so much about how when you started, you had -0 of it, and you've built it, and now it's part of your shtick that has become part of that brand and the differentiator.
Yeah, and what's funny is that any mortgage professional can do it. It's not just me. Like this stuff, the knowledge that I'm spitting isn't unique or proprietary to me in any way, with the exception of like a few things here we have at Madison. But 99% of it is anyone else can say it. And like I have mortgage professionals, not exaggerating, at least every couple of days hit my DMs like, Ben, what should I do for content? I'm like, just copy mine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how much original content is there out there? But it's also, even though this is a crowded space, it's just like coaching is a crowded space, but people gravitate towards the way you message things and the way that you educate them. And that becomes the brand that some people resonate with, the target audience hopefully resonates with, and some people won't. You're not going to be everybody's flavor.
Exactly. So, and that's another thing. Okay, so here's some more philosophy for you, Angie. So we always tell people, and we're always being told, is to be yourself. And most people's reactions are like, shut the hell up, man. Like, like, I can't just be myself. Of course you can. So here's the thing. If you think, if someone says to you, be yourself, and then your reaction is, I can't be myself because that won't work for my industry, that means you need to go into a different industry.
Probably in a wrong industry.
Yeah. Or you don't have the skill set to be yourself and all that jazz, and you need to sharpen whatever it is that you're lacking. So that's two things. But what I'm really getting at is that being yourself is actually more efficient. Right. So think about like people who are compulsive liars. They have to like think about and track their lies constantly unless they're excellent at gaslighting. That's another thing. But if you're trying to be someone else, it's freaking exhausting.
Yes.
It is so tiring. You cannot do what you need to do. So imagine that like you have 8 meetings in a day. Each one's an hour long. I mean, that's a lot, right? But instead of being yourself throughout those 8 meetings where you're relaxed and, you could still be assertive and confident and all that stuff, but you're pretending to be or a certain character, that is physically demanding, right? It is so hard to do, and you cannot last that way, right? So finding a way on how to be yourself is literally, it is a matter of efficiency. You will do more business. And again, if you cannot be yourself, you need to work on, again, what you're lacking so you can be that person.
I couldn't have said it better myself. We're going to come back to that in a second. And also you will, like, if you follow Ben and everything he's doing, which we'll link all this stuff in the show notes, whether you're in the mortgage business or whether you just want to see somebody who's real and just authentically educating their client base, Ben is a great example. He was part of what convinced me to be on TikTok, where I have 2 whole videos. Ben, aren't you proud of me?
Nice.
Yeah.
Good job.
But I think that when we talk about like how to differentiate yourself, being yourself is the differentiator, and you don't have to try that hard.
Exactly. Look, not everyone is absolutely hilarious like you and I, Angie, right? We've just been given that gift. But other people, it could be something else. Like, okay, so another person, Katie Parsons, who was at the event. Talk
about on point sarcasm.
Yeah, oh yeah, her sarcasm. I mean, sometimes, Katie, I love you, but sometimes it's a bit much. But I let her have it, and she loves it. So her thing is like bird watching and photography. That's like her thing. It's her hobby, and she works it into her business. And for some people, it's not something like as unique as that, because I think that's quite unique. It could just be like going to the gym, or you could just be a family person and you're passionate about that. You have to have something other than just like, I just do this in the business, right? So even for me, I only put, like, with the exception of like rare occasions, I only post business stuff on social media. However, like in my stories, I'll put some personal things. If I'm out and about, or I find like a funny meme, or I want to curse at someone, this way, like, people have insight to my personality and they know I'm just not like some business dude. If you speak to other people, they will argue, and they are correct, that you should post more personal stuff. But for me, it's just not something that I love doing, at least not at this stage in my life. But, to each their own, whatever works for you.
Well, and it's funny because the flip side of that for me is I even remember you and I, when we were chatting at lunch, I was like, oh yeah, I live in the mountains. We ski 50 days a year. And you're like, you do what? And it's just like that very difference between like the city life and mountain life. And that's a unique aspect that we leverage kind of in our marketing. And that's a lifestyle thing that we share in the context of business. But you have unique stuff, everybody. It's okay to use it. To go back to the very beginning, you have a thing. You can own it. Own you.
Yeah. And I will say this, right? Because some people actually may not have a thing. And if you're listening to this saying like, okay, I'm not a family person, I don't have a hobby, guess what? You need to leave your house and do things and find something that you enjoy.
Yes.
Right? You're not going to find it by, again, doing the same thing over and over again. If all you do is wake up and go to work, you need to find other things to do. right? So, and that you will, and by doing more activities in life, you just grow as a person anyway, and you'll enjoy it. So pick something to do, and that's how you find a thing.
I think that is a great piece of advice. And thank you for proactively answering a question I was going to ask, which was, what piece of advice do you have for people who are trying to figure out their authenticity? Go find out your authenticity and be interesting. And it doesn't have to be for anybody other than you, but it helps you be a more well-rounded, enjoyable human if you do more than just go to work, go home and die.
That hit hard.
Yeah, that would be odd. Do you wake up the next day and go back? Do you come back to life the next day and go back to work?
Yeah, no one wants to live the same life over and over again.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, I mean, I've seen this, at least people that I know within my life, that people are much, much more active and social after COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were just stuck at home for a year, 2 years, depending on where you were. And they're just like doing more activity and living life. I think that's a lesson that we all learned. I certainly did. So you should be one of those people and try things.
You should be one of those people. Words of wisdom with Ben and Angie. We could go out all day. Yeah. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask for a little bit of your subject matter expertise. And what advice do you have for homeowners and sellers right now?
The typical answer is what I'm supposed to say is you should buy and you should sell. Right? That's what I'm supposed to say. What I really think is that if it makes sense for you, then do it. But like trying to time the market it's not possible. You know, do we think that home prices will drop in some areas of the country? Yes, but what if you're wrong, right? And what if, like, let's say that you're renting. So, look, let me rephrase this. So, I'm a mortgage guy, right? So I always think about money, right? And it's like, okay, you know, interest rates, you're going to save this much, you know, you're not going to be paying rent anymore. You're going to have a mortgage payment. You can build equity, all this stuff, right? And that kind of changed for me when I spoke to this listing agent that I know. And he was living in an apartment in the Bronx. And he ended up buying a house somewhere north of the Bronx in like a suburb. And he just had a kid. And he literally said to me, he's like, I should have done this years ago. Forget the money, Ben. You know, it's whatever. I'm creating all these memories with my family, and I'm having such an amazing time in this new home. And I was just like, that's really, I mean, that's amazing. And I also feel kind of silly for not even like thinking about that. There's more to it than just money, right? If you're getting value out of the purchase of the home and you're going to enjoy this completely new life. And of course, as long as you can afford it and it's logical, right? I'm not saying do it and be irresponsible, but there's more to it than just like time the market, right? You got to think of how it's going to affect your whole life. And then again, for people that are selling, same thing. If you live here in New York and you're selling because you want to move to Florida, but you want to wait for 2 years to enjoy the sun, then, you know, and you're going to be miserable in the winter, then that's something that you're going to have to risk. You're going to have to deal with it. So, you know, time is more important than money, as we all know, because everyone tells us this, and it is true. So, you know, the quicker that you enjoy your life, I say the better.
I say the same thing with job searching, that there is no perfect time, because there will always be either internal factors or external factors affecting the, you know, idyllic conditions of job searching, which I think I've actually been making a lot of parallels between the job and hiring market and the real estate market right now. And this is another one, that there isn't a perfect time to buy or sell your house. If you got to do it, you just got to do it. And there's no reason prolonging what you know you want to do to try to thread some needle that we don't even know is going to be available to you. So there you go.
Yeah.
So basically, Ben, your advice is still buy and sell.
Yeah, buy and sell if it makes sense for you, right? You know, the only exception to what I'm talking about are like the investors, right, who are trying to buy for the sole purpose of making money, and I respect that. And like even for me, I bought my rental properties in my late 20s, and I'm glad I did, because over time they've appreciated and, you know, increased rent and blah, blah, blah. Right. So over time, it always makes sense. But in terms of, again, timing the market, it's not my expertise. Right. So it's hard to say. But, you know, as an investor, I honestly don't believe especially if you're experienced. If you're inexperienced, then you need to develop your own knowledge base. But like, you shouldn't be the type of person. I'm going into different thoughts here, but this is key, is that if you're looking to invest into real estate, you should definitely get some hand holding, right? So I help investors and I walk them through stuff, but ultimately, like, you shouldn't put it on other people. You have to do enough market research and understand what you're buying so you're comfortable with the decision. You don't want to buy something and in 2-3 years be like, my attorney, my loan officer, and my realtor gave me bad advice. Like, no, take responsibility. We're here to hold your hand and we'll give you advice, but we don't know either. We're taking very, very educated guesses based on market research data and our own experiences. But at the end of the day, we're just people. We don't know 100%. So, be informed. And that's usually the advice that I give. Be as informed as you possibly can and take calculated risks. Because at the end of the day, that's what we do in every aspect of our life anyway. Nothing is guaranteed. We're taking very, very highly calculated risks. That's what you got to do.
I think Ben should be the new host of the No More Mondays podcast.
I'm giving you all my juice.
Let's go.
I've run out.
I'm a big fan of calculated risks in professional life and otherwise. But in this particular situation, as we kind of like move along, it's the idea that it's a long game, probably not a short game for most people out there. So take that for what you will. And if you live in New York, call Ben.
Yes, call me.
So speaking of kind of like recommendations, advice, we're going to play a little game and get to know you a little more. How's that sound?
Sure. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. What's your most memorable travel destination?
I think Italy. I went to Italy a couple years ago to Lake Como, and it was absolutely, the views were just breathtaking. I haven't seen anything like it. Because you're on the water, like in this, on the lake, with this beautiful, like Italian scenery of the actual water in the mountains, and then further back you have the Swiss Alps.
Yeah, the skiing there is amazing.
Yeah, it was just absolutely incredible. Yeah, that was a great one.
I'm curious to see what you throw out for this. A great book recommendation.
Ooh, James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Classic. However, I have read, because that I've only read once, Tim Grover's Relentless, I've read like 4 times. And I don't read books multiple times, but that one I have.
Those are both really good. And the Atomic Habits in particular is good to pair with the earlier suggestion of like evaluating your existing habits and routines and seeing how you can create efficiencies. And then, if somebody who likes to win as much as you, makes sense that you like a book called Relentless.
There is one book that I want to read that I haven't read. It's Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Chef. Because have you read it?
No, I've listened to the 4-Hour Work Week as a 18-minute blank. But
yeah, okay. So the reason why I want to read it is because apparently, this is what I'm told, the book is really about like how to master new skills as quickly as possible.
Ooh.
So that's why, like, if you want to learn, like, he went into it's not Samba, it's Sambo, which is like a Russian, I think, type of like wrestling or fighting style. And he mastered it very quickly, or he was able to figure out rules. And it's just like a different way of thinking and like how to master new skills. Because I also think that, again, in terms of growth, we need to be able to master things or get, not master, but like get 80-20 rule, right? Understand 80% of it as quickly as humanly possible. So it's probably next.
Let's have a book club. I'm going to read that together. There you go.
Let's do it. Keep me accountable.
Sign up. If everyone wants to be part of Ben and Angie's book club, just, come on board.
Let's do it.
What's your favorite movie?
You're going to laugh.
I had a feeling I would.
This actually isn't my favorite movie, but it happens to be the movie that I think of when people ask me that question. And it's Face Off.
No. A Nicolas Cage movie is your and John Travolta is your answer to that question?
Face Off. And then you've got, the
Face Off. Seriously, I'm jumping in on this one. Face Off. Really? That's your favorite movie?
Yeah. I mean, look, I've watched it. I haven't watched it
now. This is going sideways, guys.
So the reason why, because it's just a classic,
bad Nicolas Cage movie.
Crazy. Yeah, it's terrible, but it's John Travolta and Nicolas Cage just being themselves on steroids. That's why I love it so much, because they're just so like wild and crazy, and they're They're just hilarious. So like to me, like I love it because the movie's freaking hilarious, not because it's a good movie. If you want to talk about like actual movies, like to me, I love the Matrix trilogy just from a philosophical perspective. I think it's a great series. Not the fourth one, that was terrible.
It was horrible. Yeah, let's not go there. It's not part of the.
Yeah,
no.
and then you've got like classics like, Princess Bride, Shawshank Redemption.
Jim fell asleep the first time I ever showed him Princess Bride. He did not see it until he was like 28 years old. Should we shame him?
Jim.
If you're going to bust in on this conversation, Jim, we're going to shun you.
To the other side of the house, Jim.
Okay, I'll go away.
No, come back.
Moving on. Give me a podcast recommendation other than No More Mondays.
The Madison Mortgage Podcast.
And of course, this is a show about Mondays. So what's the first word that comes to mind when I say Monday?
Destroy, crush, win.
I feel like that's so appropriate. I'm not even going to ask why, because you've already explained why. Mondays, destroy.
Yeah, win, conquer. The world is yours.
So I'm going to attempt to wrap things up. But where do people follow along with you, your education, and your antics?
The antics is a very accurate description.
I feel like I thought you might agree.
Yeah, I got to do more of those. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Instagram is really the best place. Instagram, I'm everywhere. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Twitter and YouTube and everywhere. But like I'm most active on Instagram because I spend like half of my day on Instagram just interacting with people. Right? Like people like realtors and loan officers in the business and just like random friends and family. So that's literally where I spend all my time. And if you want to get at me and do some shenanigans with me, you're welcome to. Let's do it together.
Antics and shenanigans. There you go. That's antics, shenanigans, and winning. That's you. Yeah, that's you in a nutshell.
Thank you very much.
Which is why this has been such a fun conversation that could go on all day.
Put that on my wall.
Okay, sweet. Can I hashtag? That's your new hashtag. I love it.
Gold plated.
And we'll link to all of this stuff in show notes so that you can follow along with the shenanigans because I highly recommend them. And because whether or not you're in, this is a good side note, just a very like real piece of information. Whether or not you're in the New York market, Ben gives out great information just in general about how mortgage lending works, how home buying works, financial considerations around all that kind of stuff. It's good education no matter where you are.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
How's that? I had to enhance the shenanigans with a little constructive real stuff.
It's nice to hear. It's very nice. Everyone likes to be flattered. So thank you very much, Andy. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And let's go back to philosophy one more time before we bid adieu. What's your number one piece of advice for people out there who are trying to figure it out and trying to find satisfaction?
Take action. You don't want to be one of those people, and I'm guilty of this, or I was guilty of this. So growing up, I'm going to sound like a samurai or something, but I was my parents put me into martial arts very young, right? And martial arts, the problem with it is that it kind of turns you into a perfectionist in a way. And like I would refuse to take any action in anything in my life. I mean, I'm slightly exaggerating, unless I felt like I could do it perfectly. And I had to untrain myself. And so my advice is that don't overanalyze things. You learn more by doing than you do by studying. And you don't want to be one of those people that just like sits on the sidelines. I mean, like I have a friend who like watches YouTube videos all day and podcasts and like all the stuff. And of course, podcasts are great. You can learn things, but you learn more by doing than anything else in life. So, as long as you're doing the right things, you definitely have to stop here and there and again, audit your day, audit your life and saying is what I'm doing is helping what I'm trying to do. But I honestly find, Angie, that the number one issue that I see people do is not doing anything.
Perfectionism. Oh, you just gave me so much stuff. But there's no point in consuming all of these things. It's one of the reasons that I always ask for actions in these podcasts, because in my opinion, inspiration isn't a deliverable. And if all you're doing is consuming inspiration and not outputting that energy, like what's the point? It's wasted time. And, I really feel like, to wrap all that up in a nutshell, perfectionism leads to one thing, and that's analysis paralysis, and that doesn't get you anywhere. And so it's usually better to start than to like wait and do something perfectly. So I'm 100% on board with the idea that if there's one thing you do, it's do.
Yeah, that's literally it.
There you go.
And then to add to what we were saying before, Angie, if if you find yourself struggling to do those things because they're new, that's when you have to like sit and again analyze your behavior and say, how can I put myself in a frame of mind where I can do this new thing?
Yep.
So you see, it all connects.
Absolutely. I love it. Words of wisdom with Ben and Angie. We should like maybe have a philosophy class or something like that. We're pretty good at this.
We are. Well, that's putting it lightly. We are amazing.
We are amazing at this, which is why all of you out there should go to wherever you subscribe to this podcast and leave it a 5-star rating, because we are amazing. Absolutely. Ben, I knew this would be a good time, but I actually didn't, no offense, know that there would be such great advice here. I was hoping that would be the case, but I knew at very least it would be entertaining for me and everybody out there listening.
I will take that as a compliment. Thank you, Mitch. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming, sharing your wisdom, and giving people really good food for thought, because I think there's great takeaways here, and the advice to just go do is a very sound thing to think about. If you're not doing, but you don't like where you're at, maybe you should do.
Agreed.
There you go.
And thank you. Thank you for having me. This was awesome. Absolutely awesome. So thank you again, Ange.
Ben Lavender.
I'll come back on. If you want me back on, I'll come back.
I feel like you might be a repeat offender.
That's true.
I think we have lots of conversations we could have. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Lavender, New York's favorite British mortgage broker, here with all kinds of life and career wisdom. Ben, thank you so much for being part of the show and joining the No More Mondays movement.
Love you. Thank you. And watch Face Off.
Oh, yeah. There's your weekend. There's your weekend due. Watch Face Off, everybody. All right. As we wrap this up and say goodbye to Ben, I'm just going to say thank you again. Tune into everything he's got going on, all the great wisdom and advice he has to offer in mortgage and everything out there. Leave us that 5-star rating because we're awesome. Watch Face Off. Tune in to nomoremondays.info for all of the links to this episode. If you want to leave comments, feedback, guest suggestions, or again, grab the links and everything from today's show, head over to nomoremondays.info, and I'll see you again next week for another episode. Thanks for joining us for another episode of No More Mondays. Tune in next week as we bring you more insights and actions to help you improve your professional life and find career satisfaction. Don't forget, visit us online at nomoremondays.info for all the details, show notes, and recommendations from this episode. No More Mondays, we drop new episodes every Wednesday. No More Mondays is brought to you by Career Benders, Inc. in partnership with executive producer Jane Durkee. For more information about career coaching, resume writing, personal branding, recruiting, and entrepreneurship coaching services, visit our website at careerbenders.com.